Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm No Shorty, and today we're doing one of two. Well, no, not one of two reviews today. That was misleading. This week I'm going to be reviewing two different things by Bayer Comics. This is the first of them. It is Quad. There's also going to be Until My Knuckles Bleed, which is a very cool title for a comic book, but this one has a setting that's and a style which is more interesting to me. Think post-apocalyptic. There is something that happened generations ago that wiped out all technology. The financial systems collapsed, and the world now is kind of Fallout-esque. There's other stuff going on though, and I like the fact that there is other stuff going on. We'll get to that later. But it's not just the world we're dealing with here. It's also the main characters, Terra and Elvis, which is a female mechanic of doing mechanical things and making people's lives better in this hellscape, and her cat. And I've got to be honest, just that was enough to sell me on it. You know, let's have a mechanic and a cat in a post-apocalyptic world. Yeah, count me in. I'm already set on this one. What struck me as odd then is when you get to the end, you realise that this isn't going to be a full story of Terra and Elvis. That was chapter 1. The next one, which is a drop you right at the end, totally different story. But within the world of Quad, which I quite like. Now, I didn't know this was an anthology going into it, but I'm kind of happy that it is. It means there's a lot of fun to be had with different kind of stories within this world because they set up a lot of world building. There is an event that happened, like I say, but it doesn't fully explain it. It doesn't have the time to fully explain it because instead of going on about all the world-ending, world-building kind of stuff, they just have fun with this story, which is Terra and Elvis getting a job and having to go to the old man to get parts for it, but they didn't have all the parts, so they have to go to a power plant where there's a bunch of mutates waiting outside, who are all butt naked, by the way. This is a good point. Actually, talk about the artwork, specifically the fact that it's all grayscale, like that. But when you see the mutates, you do get a sense that their skin is a different color. And that made me think, well, yeah, I also got a sense of like dustiness, like browns, tan kind of colors throughout the world. And it's like, there is none of that. I mean, yes, you can look at the color and like extrapolate from there from the cover, but I don't think it is even that. I think it's just really effective use of shading and setting. It adds a lot to the world, and it's really, really effective. Also, does great 9-panel pages. I mean, check out that. Looks absolutely brilliant. Nice way of doing pacing for this story. Adds little extra details to it. But it's not fully reliant on it. Now, yes, this doesn't look nine panels, of course not. But if you extrapolate out lines from various other panels, you'll see that this could be 9. It's just modified. I like that as a storytelling thing. I also like the fact that it's not fully relied on throughout the entire comic book. There are chapters within, as it were, when you get a nice full-page spread, and it gives the artist even more room to shine, because you get a sense of just immaculate detail in this world, but not over the top, and not to the point that you are losing yourself in the detail. It's not, Jeff Darrow is brilliant at this kind of thing. It's not that. There is still an earthiness to it. There's still a scratchy feel where the detail is enough to draw your eye in, but not enough for you to get lost in it. Sometimes that's exactly what I want. Sometimes I want the page to be something where I'm going to spend 5 minutes looking at all the individual little details. Again, Jeff Darrow is the master of this kind of thing. But this, it's a bit bigger. The detail is there, but it's part of a larger story and a larger world. And again, we do have that sense because this is going to be different stories set throughout. In fact, this story ends with a much larger thing happening. And I don't particularly want to spoil anything. I'm going to try my best to tell you vaguely what happens in a way that's interesting without just telling you exactly what happens. But the person who has reported a broken thingy, a MacGuffin, turns out to not be a person as one would expect, and instead lured her out there just to gain access to her cat. Yeah, it's weird, and I wish I could tell you why, but honestly, it would spoil it. But then some catastrophic event happens, and it leaves her with a cat that is in dire need of help, and her left in the middle of nowhere, seemingly aware of what's happened, that it makes sense to her, which means in the world we have, even though it was never explicitly stated in the comic book so far, including in the intro, which reads very much like the start of a Terminator movie to me, there is more going on there than we know as the audience. The people who live in the world obviously know more about the world, and the way they drop that in is really, really quite impressive. All in all, really good comic book, and I have to say this, there's a lot of nipple in this comic book, and I don't mean that as like, you know, a hugely derogatory thing, but fairly early on it was a bit like, oh, it's kind of weird that there's like time being taken to draw a nipple here, and then you notice them throughout the comic book. Eduardo, is it Eduardo? I've forgotten. Yeah, Eduardo Charles. he really likes nipples, apparently, or he's just really good at drawing them and he wants everyone to know it. Don't know why it's a thing, but it's a thing you have to be prepared for if you want to read this comic book. That's it from me today, though. I'm going to be back tomorrow with another review. Until then, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.